10 years of infatuation, I spent the family fortune on the ice-cold CEO, Sophia, and in the end all I got was the cold beep of machines in the ICU of Jing City General Hospital. Reborn in one moment, I returned to 10 years ago. This time, I won't be a humble pursuer, won't be a moth to the flame. I decisively sold my house for cash and, using memories of the future, laid out precise plans, only to get a dull, wealthy retiree life ahead of schedule. But when I turned to leave, why was that woman who had never looked me in the eyes standing there, her expression showing for the first time an emotion called panic? The smell of disinfectant is my last memory of the previous life. My name is Ethan. I was 38 when I died, alone, lying in the intensive care unit of Jing City General Hospital. The cardiac monitor gave a flat, piercing long alarm, announcing the end of my absurd life. 10 years. I spent a full 10 years like a moth drawn to flame, chasing a woman named Sophia. She was a favored daughter of heaven, the ice queen of a business empire, and I was just the humblest, most persistent, and most ridiculous among the countless followers behind her. Her stomach was weak, and I delivered her meals through wind and rain without fail. When she needed capital to start her business, I mortgaged the house my parents left me and offered up every last asset with both hands. When her company ran in a crisis, I even resorted to gray methods, risking my own future to clear obstacles for her, only to end up ruined and disgraced. Whenever I did any of this, she was always that same distant, cool figure. A faint thank you, or, Ethan, you don't have to do this, would dismiss all my fervor. Before I died, I dialed her number one last time and, weakly, told her that I might not make it. On the other end of the line came a long silence, then her characteristically calm, rational voice. Ethan, don't make that kind of joke. I'm very busy. Have my assistant transfer some money to you later. Click. The call ended. In that moment, what I heard was not the monitor's alarm, but the sound of the faith I had held for 10 years collapsing. I gave her everything, money, dignity, health, even my life. And to her, I wasn't even worth a genuine emotion beyond a joke. As consciousness faded, I had only one thought. If I could do it over, I would never meet a woman named Sophia again. Ethan, wake up. Someone was shaking my shoulders hard. I shot awake, the glaring sunlight making me squint. What met my eyes wasn't the hospital's white ceiling, but the apartment I'd lived in for many years. A reproduction of Monet's water lilies hung on the wall, the one I'd picked up when I graduated from college. What are you spacing out for? Miss Sophia's call. An anxious voice sounded in my ear. I turned my head and saw my childhood friend, Lucas. He was holding my phone, the name Sophia on the screen like a brand, burning into my eyes. I was stunned. Lucas had gone abroad after college. We hadn't seen each other in almost 10 years. In this apartment, I'd sold it 5 years ago to cover Sophia's company's cash flow. I grabbed my phone. The date on the screen read, June 12th, 2024. I had gone back 10 years. Back to before all the tragedy began. What are you standing there for? You'd even dare not pick up Miss Sophia's call. Lucas, seeing me unmoved, stamped his foot anxiously. Didn't you say you were going to bring her the nutritious breakfast you made yourself today? If you don't go now, it'll be too late. Nutritious breakfast. I remember now. It was today. Sophia had stayed up 3 nights straight working on a project and came down with acute gastroenteritis. I was so worried I couldn't stand it. I got up at 4 in the morning and used the finest ingredients to make her a rich Western-style soup. In the previous life, I delivered the soup and she only had her assistant accept it. She didn't even see me. That bowl of soup was later poured straight into the trash. And I, like a fool, waited downstairs for 3 hours. Ethan, Lucas reached out to feel my forehead when I still didn't move. Are you okay? You seem a little off. I took a deep breath. The constricted, dying sensation in my chest was gone, replaced by fresh, lively air. I'm really back. The phone kept insistently ringing. That name seemed to carry a kind of magic, trying once more to pull me back into the abyss. I looked at the name, and scenes from the past 10 years flashed rapidly through my mind. The humble flattery, the efforts that were ignored, the self-satisfying sacrifices. Then I laughed. It was the laugh of someone who'd survived a catastrophe, a mix of self-mockery and relief. Under Lucas's shocked gaze, I reached out and pressed the red hang-up button. The world fell instantly silent. Are you crazy? Lucas's eyes nearly popped out. You hung up on Sophia? To him, it was nothing short of a believer desecrating a deity. I didn't explain. I just tossed my phone aside, stood up, and walked to the kitchen. The pot of carefully simmered broth, redolent of expensive ingredients, was still being kept warm over low heat. I picked up the pot and went to the sink. Splash. The milky broth, mingled with truffle and scallop, was without hesitation poured by me straight down the drain. Lucas was completely petrified, mouth agape, not able to say a single word. He probably thought I had been possessed by something. After doing all that, I felt like every shackle on my body had disappeared. I turned around, patted Lucas on the shoulder, and my tone was as light as if I had laid down a 1,000-pound burden. Come on, accompany me to take care of something. Take care of what? Sell the house. Sell the house. Lucas's voice shot up an octave. Ethan, are you out of your mind? This is the only keepsake uncle and aunt left you. Where would you live if you sell it? Besides, why would you sell the house? To invest. I was terse. As I spoke, I took the property deed and ID from the wardrobe. My movements showed not a trace of hesitation. Lucas followed right behind me like a worried old mom. Why do you have to sell the house to invest? Isn't your savings enough? Didn't you almost mortgage this place before to fund Sophia's company? What is this for her again? He still thinks I'm that fool who's crazy for love. I stopped walking, turned to look at him, my expression calm and steady. Lucas, from today on, the name Sophia has nothing to do with me, Ethan, anymore. My tone was very calm, but Lucas was stunned. From my eyes, he saw something he had never seen before. Determination. It wasn't sulking nor playing hard to get, but a true, heartfelt letting go. He fell silent. I immediately contacted the most efficient real estate agent in Jing City with only one requirement: full payment. Close the deal as soon as possible, and the price could be 5% below market. Reborn into this life, I know that time is money, especially at this point in time. The broker worked efficiently and found a buyer in less than half a day. I didn't even blink when signing the contract. When the extra $8 million showed up in my bank account, I felt nothing. In my last life, I would have thrown away that $8 million without hesitation for Sophia. In this life, it will be the first lever I use to pry open financial freedom. Lucas stayed with me the whole time, his expression shifting from shock to numbness, and finally to worry. Ethan, tell me the truth. What exactly happened to you? After finishing the paperwork, he dragged me to a cafe, his expression serious. I stirred the coffee in my cup and watched the busy traffic outside the window. Nothing happened, I said lightly. I just had a very long dream, and I woke up. I knew he didn't believe me, but I couldn't explain. I couldn't very well tell him that I had died and come back to life 10 years later. Then what do you plan to do next? Are you really going to invest that $8 million? I nodded. What will you invest in? I lifted my head, looked at him, and said 3 words: Bitgold. The year 2024. For most people, it was still a vague concept, even regarded as a scam. But only I knew that in the coming year, it would undergo an epic surge. Lucas's brow knotted into a frown. That thing? Ethan, isn't that a scam? The news says it's extremely risky. High risk, high return. I smiled and pushed a bank card toward him. There's $500,000 on it. The PIN is 888888. Haven't you always wanted to start your own studio? Take it. Consider it my investment in you. Lucas was stunned. What are you doing? I don't want it. Take it. Consider it me returning the favors you've done for me over the years. I shoved the card into his hand. Don't try to persuade me again. I know what I'm doing. In my last life, Lucas argued with me countless times to stop obsessing over Sophia, and in the end, disillusioned, he left the country. This time, I didn't want to lose this friend again. He looked at me, his lips trembling, and in the end he took the card, his eyes a little red. "All right, I trust you. But if you blow through this, those $500,000 of mine will buy your meals for the rest of your life. Don't worry, it's not necessary." I invested the remaining $7. $5 million without hesitation, putting it all into the Bitcoin market. After doing all this, I felt as if I had completed an important ritual. From now on, my life would sail into a completely new channel, one that no longer intersected with Sophia's. To celebrate my rebirth, I booked a table at an upscale French restaurant. Just as I was about to enjoy a solo dinner, my phone rang again. This time, it was an unfamiliar number. I answered casually. "Ethan." A cold, familiar voice came from the other end of the line, one that made me viscerally repulsed. It was Sophia. I could even picture her expression now, slightly furrowed brows, a hint of impatience and condescension. She was probably about to ask why I hadn't answered the phone, why I hadn't brought breakfast. I didn't say anything, preparing to hang up immediately. "Where are you?" She seemed to notice my intention and sped up her speech a bit. "I sent my assistant to your place and found the agent showing people around." "What do you mean by that?" There was an air of entitled accusation in her tone, as if my house, my life, were supposed to exist to serve her. I gave a light laugh. "Miss Taylor, I think whether I'm where I am or whether I sell the house has nothing to do with you, right?" On the other end of the line, there was a death-like silence. I could feel Sophia being taken aback. She probably never expected me to speak to her in such a distant yet polite tone. After a few seconds, she spoke again, a trace of barely perceptible irritation in her voice. "Ethan, do you know what you're saying?" "I know exactly." I picked up a slice of salmon, dipped it in some soy sauce, put it in my mouth, and mumbled, "Ms. Taylor, if there's nothing else, I have to go. I'm Busse." "You." Before she could finish, I hung up, blocked her, full service. The world was quiet once more. Mouthfuls of rich tuna belly in my mouth. I suddenly felt that without Sophia in my life, even the air tasted sweet. What I didn't know was that at this moment, in the most upscale office building in the center of Jing City, Sophia was holding a phone that had been hung up on. On her exquisitely beautiful face, for the first time, a look of bewilderment and stupefied surprise appeared. She couldn't understand why the dog that always wagged its tail and ran to her first would suddenly stop obeying. The next month, I lived in unparalleled comfort. I rented an executive suite in a high-end hotel, slept until I woke naturally every day, worked out, read, or studied what money-making opportunities might appear in the next few years. The Beijing market, just as I remembered, began to climb slowly but steadily. The numbers in my account grew each day at a pace that made my heart race. I completely cut off all contact with my old circle. I changed my phone number and canceled all my overseas social apps. Apart from Lucas, no one could find me. This secluded, lying flat life made me feel an unprecedented sense of relaxation. That afternoon, I was reading in the cafe downstairs at the hotel when a familiar figure suddenly appeared at the door. Sophia. She was wearing a well-tailored white suit, her long hair pinned up, with a cool, aloof demeanor that drew everyone's eyes as soon as she entered. A man followed her, slicked hair, powder-pale face, and an air of arrogance. "It's Dylan, a typical rich second-generation heir and my rival in my past life. He always treated Sophia like something he owned, and he did everything to belittle and mock me, this fly. They seemed to be here on business, heading straight for the empty seat next to me. I instinctively stood my book up to hide my face. Not because I was afraid, but because I found it annoying. I just want to quietly be an invisible person. I don't want any intersection with these past affairs in my life. Sophia, this cafe is nice, isn't it? I specially reserved it for you." Dylan courteously pulled out a chair for Sophia. His voice was neither loud nor soft, just enough to reach my ears. Sophia said nothing, only nodded slightly, her gaze sweeping around the cafe. When her eyes passed over my side, I could feel them linger for a moment. I raised the book a little higher. "Sophia, about that parcel of land in the south of Jing City, my dad has already made arrangements. If Parker Group and your Taylor Group join forces, we'll definitely secure it. Dylan got down to business, his tone full of swagger. Sophia gave a distracted, but her gaze still lingered in my direction. I sighed inwardly. Looks like I can't avoid it. I put the book down, ready to pay and leave. The moment I stood up, 4 pairs of eyes landed on me at once. Dylan's expression was first one of surprise, then quickly turned into unmasked contempt and mockery. Well, who did I think it was? Isn't this Ethan? He called out exaggeratedly. What a coincidence. I heard you sold your house. Where have you been getting rich lately? How did you end up coming to a place like this for coffee? His words were obvious. He was mocking me for not being able to afford this place. In my previous life, faced with this kind of sneer, I would have flushed and fought back just to prove a point in front of Sophia. But now, I only found it laughable. It was like watching a childish play. I ignored him and simply waved at the waiter. Check, please. My indifference completely enraged Dylan. He felt humiliated in front of Sophia. Ethan, what are you acting all high and mighty for? A pauper who even sold his house dares to put on airs in front of me. He stood up and blocked my way. Are you still secretly obsessed with Sophia? Following her here on purpose? Sophia sat there without speaking, just quietly watching me. Her expression was complicated, inquiring, puzzled, and even a trace of anticipation. What is she hoping for? That I'll fight Dylan tooth and nail for her like before? How pathetic. I looked at Dylan as if he were a ridiculous clown. Move aside, I said calmly. I won't allow it. Today you must apologize to Sophia. Apologize for stalking her. Dylan persisted. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him further. I pulled a wad of cash from my wallet and tossed it on the table. Settle my bill and these 2's bills together. The rest, buy this gentleman some medicine. He looks seriously ill. Saying that, I walked past him and headed straight for the door. Throughout the whole process, I didn't look at Sophia once, as if she were nothing more than an irrelevant background prop. Dylan was so furious at my behavior that he trembled all over, pointing at my retreating back and unable to utter a word for a long time. As for Sophia, she remained in her seat, the hand holding her coffee cup stiffening slightly. She watched my resolute departure, watched that I never once glanced at her, and in those eyes that were always as calm as still water, a huge turmoil rose for the first time. She never expected that the man who once worshipped her like a deity and blushed even when looking her in the eye could now completely ignore her. This utter disregard, more than any cruel words, made her feel an unprecedented sting. After leaving the cafe, I went straight back to the hotel. A clown of Dylan's caliber could no longer affect my mood at all. I opened my laptop and glanced at the Bitcoin candlestick chart. Nice. A beautiful, bullish candle shooting straight up. My assets had quietly quintupled. $8 million in capital had now turned into $40 million. And this was only the beginning. I stretched and decided to reward myself. I picked up the phone and called the hotel's room service. Hello, I need to book a private chef for the next month. 3 meals a day, delivered to my room. Also, arrange for a physiotherapist to come every afternoon for a full-body relaxation session. Oh, and please order the latest full set of high-end overseas gaming equipment. I listed a bunch of requests in one go. The customer service girl on the other end of the phone was clearly stunned by my simple, unpretentious, do-nothing demands and confirmed several times. When the call ended, I lay down on the soft, plush bed and felt like life couldn't be more beautiful. In my past life, every penny I earned was calculated to be spent on Sophia. Buying myself a piece of clothing over $500 felt extravagant. But now I just want to spend money on things that make me feel good. In the days that followed, I completely started living like a good-for-nothing. I slept until I woke naturally every day. Top chefs brought delicacies to my bedside. After eating my fill, I played video games, and when I was tired, a physical therapist came to give me a massage. Occasionally, I checked my accounts, and the numbers in them shot up like they were on a rocket. During that time, Lucas came to see me once. Seeing me in this decadent and degenerate state, he was heartbroken. Ethan, I thought you were selling the house to do something big. What are you doing? Giving up on yourself. I was wearing an overseas high-end VR headset, piloting a Gundam in the virtual world. Hearing him, I took off the headset and looked at him with an innocent face. This is me doing business. Playing games is your business? No, I said, pointing at the long string of numbers on the computer screen. This is it. Lucas leaned in to take a look. When he counted how many zeros were at the end of the number, his whole body went rigid. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, $80 million, he stammered, his voice trembling. You robbed a bank? I said it was an investment, I said casually. Just got lucky. Lucas sat beside me, silent for a long time, then suddenly guzzled a mouthful of the iced cola on my table. I think I get it now. He exhaled. You're not giving up on yourself, you're ascending to enlightenment. I smiled and said nothing. And just as I was enjoying my laid-back life, the rumors about me outside took a strange turn. Whether Dylan was stirring the pot behind the scenes or not, people in the circle were saying that Ethan, had failed in love pursuing Sophia, was crushed by the Taylor family, which led to investment losses and being wiped out, and ultimately had to sell my house to pay debts, now hiding somewhere licking my wounds. The rumor had detail and substance. Some even claimed to have seen me near a cheap rental. Dylan was even more smug, publicly and privately taking shots at me at every opportunity, portraying himself as the ultimate victor. Naturally, these rumors reached Sophia's ears. Taylor Group, the president's office. Sophia stood before the huge floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the city below. Her assistant was reporting to her. Ms. Taylor, regarding Mr. Ethan's recent situation, we've conducted an investigation. The assistant spoke cautiously. The hand with which Sophia held her coffee cup paused for a barely perceptible moment. Speak. She spat out the single word, her voice still cold. According to the information coming from Mr. Dillon's side, Mr. Ethan appears to have suffered investment failures, has already sold off all his assets, and at the moment, his whereabouts are unknown. The assistant chose his words carefully. Silence fell over the office. Sophia didn't speak. She just quietly stared out the window. Hid away? That Ethan who chased her like a sunflower, the Ethan who would still show up the next day, smiling no matter how cold she treated him. Would he hide away because of such a minor setback? She didn't believe it. But that day in the cafe, his unfamiliar, indifferent gaze resurfaced in her mind. A feeling she had never experienced before, like a thin needle, pricked her heart. It was a kind of loss of control. All along, Ethan had been the most stable, most controllable variable in her life. She knew that as long as she looked back, he would always be there. But now, this variable seemed to have vanished. Ms. Taylor. The assistant, seeing her silent for a long time, called softly. Sophia came back to herself and suppressed that strange feeling. Understood, she said lightly. A person of no consequence. No more need to report his matters to me from now on. The assistant nodded and left. Only Sophia remained in the office. She set down her coffee cup, picked up her phone, and on a whim dug out from the overseas social app's contacts the number she had already blocked. She stared at the number for a long time, but in the end she didn't dial. She told herself she was just not used to a familiar background suddenly disappearing. Yes, that's it. She didn't know that the person she called irrelevant was currently lying on a mattress worth $100,000, fretting over whether to have a French gourmet dinner or a Japanese kaiseki tonight. And the number in his bank account had quietly broken into 9 figures in dollars. Me, Ethan, an unremarkable, lazy loser worth over $100 million. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye another month had passed. The price of Bitgold had surged to a level that sent the whole world into a frenzy. I sold off every chip I held just before the peak with pinpoint accuracy. The funds were secured. Staring at the number in my bank account measured in hundreds of millions, I let out a long sigh of relief. In this life, I finally have the capital to lie flat as I please. The first thing I did was buy, with full payment, a top-floor duplex in the most exclusive riverside estate in Jing City. The kind with a sky garden and an infinity pool. Then I summoned Lucas over. When he stood before the enormous floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked half the city, he was completely distraught. "Ethan, I'm not dreaming, am I?" he murmured. "Pinch yourself, and you'll know." I handed him a glass of champagne. He actually pinched his thigh, baring his teeth from the pain, then snatched the champagne from my hand and drank it in one go. "Damn, you kid, quietly making a fortune," he exclaimed, punching me in excitement. "Now you believe me, right? Stick with me, and you'll get a share." Got it. I want to cling to your coattails right now," Lucas said obsequiously. "Boss, from now on your little brother will follow you." I smiled and moved on to the main topic. "How's your Miller Creative Studio coming along?" "Almost ready, just short of the final startup capital. I wired him $10 million outright." "Is that enough?" Lucas stared at the payment notification on his phone, his hands trembling. "This is enough. More than enough. Ethan, this is too much. Take it." Considerate me, making amends on behalf of my past self. I patted his shoulder. In my previous life, he pleaded with me earnestly, and I wouldn't listen to a single word. In the end, I broke his heart. I've carried that guilt ever since. Lucas's eyes reddened again. A grown man, he forced himself not to let the tears fall. "All right, I accept. From now on, my life is yours. I don't want your life. Just focus on your career." After settling Lucas, my plan to lie flat was officially put into motion. I hired an overseas professional wealth management team to handle this huge sum with only one requirement: be conservative and simply beat inflation. As for me, I completely became an idle rich man. My daily life was swimming, working out, watching movies, playing games, and occasionally on a whim dining at an international starred restaurant to take a star. This simple, unpretentious life made me exceedingly satisfied. And just as I was enjoying life, a massive commercial storm was quietly brewing. And at the center of the storm was Taylor Group. I saw the news in a financial report. Business giant Parker Group, together with multiple capital firms, is suspected of launching a hostile takeover of Taylor Group. I looked at Sophia's face on the TV screen, still cold, but betraying fatigue, and felt not a ripple of emotion. I remember this incident. In my last life, it was this crisis that severely wounded the Taylor Group. And I, to help her, mobilized all my connections and resources, even resorting to some unsavory methods. In the end, I helped her repel the Parker Group, but I also plunged myself into an abyss of no return. I became Sophia's hero, but the fate of that hero was to die alone in a hospital. Now history repeats. Only this time, at the edge of the chessboard, one fool named Ethan is missing. I turned off the TV, picked up the game controller, and continued my virtual world adventure. What does the survival of Taylor Group have to do with me? The crisis at Taylor Group came faster and more fiercely than I had imagined. Dylan's father, Richard Parker, was a real old fox. He had planned for a long time, and when he struck, it was with overwhelming force. Media attacks, poaching the core team, cutting off the funding. With that combination, he pushed the once proud Taylor Group into retreat after retreat. Sophia was plunged into an unprecedented predicament. All of this news came from Lucas. He's opened a studio now and has many contacts in the industry, so he gets information quickly. "Ethan, I'm afraid Sophia is really going to take a hit this time." On the phone, Lucas's tone was complicated. "The Parkers have gone all out. They clearly intend to swallow Taylor Group. I hear Sophia hasn't slept for days, and the company's stock is about to hit the limit down." "Oh," I replied, watering the plants in my sky garden. "You just haven't oh." Lucas raised his voice over there. "That was Sophia. You used to. That was before." I cut him off. "Now, who she is has nothing to do with me, does it?" Lucas fell silent. "Fine, as long as you've come to your senses." He sighed. "Oh, and one more thing. That idiot Dylan's been bragging everywhere lately, saying he was the one who recognized Sophia's worth and persuaded her not to get mixed up with a burden like you. Now that Taylor Group's in trouble, he says it proves you're just bad luck, Ethan. Whoever gets involved with you suffers." I listened and just found it amusing. Let him talk, it's just a dog barking. After hanging up, I leisurely continued tending my garden. The sun was just right and the breeze gentle. This kind of day is exactly what I want. Meanwhile, in the president's office of Taylor Group, the atmosphere was so tense it felt like it might drip. Sophia sat at her desk, deathly pale, listening to the finance director's report. MS. Taylor, our cash flow can only hold out for 3 more days at most. Several banks have suddenly tightened lending, and we simply can't obtain new funds. What about the shareholders? Most are waiting to see, and a few have already been privately approaching Parker Group. Sophia closed her eyes and rubbed her aching temples. She felt like a ship bobbing in a storm, at any moment liable to be swallowed by a towering wave. She had tried countless methods and seen countless people, but the responses she received were either polite refusals or brazen threats. The marketplace is a battlefield, and when a wall falls, everyone pushes it down. She understood this truth, but she was unwilling. This was her father's life's work. She couldn't just stand by and watch it be swallowed up by the Parker family. Just when she was exhausted, a thought, completely out of nowhere, darted into her mind. Ethan. If it were him, what would he do? The thought startled her as soon as it appeared. Why did she think of him? The man she considered a nuisance and a burden. Yet she had to admit that in many past crises, big or small, it was always Ethan who ultimately had her back and came up with solutions. Though he was humble, he possessed a kind of unconventional wisdom that could find the key to breaking the deadlock from unexpected angles. She once dismissed it as dumb luck. But now, standing alone before these raging waves, she belatedly realized that that dumb luck she had scorned might have been her truest support. But he was gone, pushed away by her own hand. The man who always smiled at her no matter how cold, she was ultimately left her with a cold back and the words, "We have nothing to do with each other." A nameless irritation and remorse gnawed at her heart. "Miss Taylor?" The assistant, seeing her worsening expression, asked with concern, "Are you all right? Do you want to take a break?" Sophia shook her head. She opened her eyes, a flash of resolve passing through them. She picked up her phone and dialed her assistant's internal line. "Find out where Ethan is right now. Use every possible means. I want to see him immediately." I hadn't expected that someone from Sophia's side could find my new residence. That afternoon, I was having a great time swimming in the infinity pool when the butler told me through the internal comms that a woman claiming to be the assistant to the CEO of Taylor Group was at the front desk asking specifically for me. I frowned, still truly a lingering ghost. "Tell her I'm not here." I refused outright. "But sir," she said that if you don't see her, she'll wait downstairs the whole time. I sneered. The same routine again. She used to do this, knew I had a soft heart, knew I couldn't bear to make her wait. Unfortunately, 3 days apart, and I'm no longer the unskilled youth I once was. "Then let her wait," I said indifferently, "until the property management comes to chase people away." After saying that, I immediately turned off my phone and continued my swimming. I thought the matter was settled. Unexpectedly, 2 hours later, Lucas called in a panic. "Ethan, hurry, check our neighborhood owners group." I opened my phone puzzled and opened the owners group. Then I saw several photos. In the pictures, Sophia was wearing a thin professional outfit, standing alone at the entrance of her complex. It was early autumn. The evening breeze already had a chill. She was hugging her arms, her face pale, looking pitiful and fragile. The group had already exploded. Isn't that the female CEO of Taylor Group? Why is she standing at our door? Oh my God, she's even more beautiful in person than on TV. Who is she here to see? She looks like she's been waiting a long time, kind of pitiful. I expressionlessly turned off my phone. A ruse to gain sympathy? It no longer works on me. However, I underestimated Dylan's shamelessness. Soon, someone in the group posted a few screenshots. They were from Dylan's overseas social app moments. He posted the photo of Sophia standing at the doorway with the caption, "Some people have no shame." Sophia is frantic over company matters, trying to ask some worthless realtor who skipped town a few questions. And what does he do? He vanishes, leaving a woman waiting in the wind for hours. What garbage? The people below liked and commented, all calling me heartless and ungrateful. Dylan's move was both stupid and vicious. He both curried favor with Sophia and nailed me to the pillar of moral shame. Lucas was so angry on the phone, he cursed loudly. Dylan is a bastard. What a piece of trash. Ethan, this can't be tolerated. You have to go down there and, in front of everyone, slap his face until it's swollen. But I was unusually calm. Why go down? To insult him back? That's too degrading. Then what? Just let him slander you like that. Don't worry. I smiled. Let him soar a little longer. The higher he flies, the harder he'll fall. I already had a plan in mind. A plan that would make both Dylan and Sophia remember it for the rest of their lives. I changed clothes but didn't go downstairs. Instead, I drove straight to the most exclusive private club in Jing City. This club operates on a membership basis with extremely strict security. A wealthy second-generation heir like Dylan happened to have a membership card here. I used the top-tier black card my overseas professional wealth management team got me and swiped straight through the gates. Sure enough, I found Dylan in the club cigar bar. He was surrounded by a group of cronies, talking big and boasting about how he was orchestrating everything, about to swallow up the Taylor Group, and taking the opportunity to kick me a few more times. That Ethan is a loser. He used to trail behind Sophia, and now that the Taylor family is on the decline, he's the first to run away. People like him are a disgrace to men. Laughter and agreement rippled around. I held a glass of whiskey and walked over slowly. Mr. Parker, who are you calling trash? My voice wasn't loud, but the whole cigar lounge fell silent instantly. Everyone looked at me. Dylan saw me and froze for a moment. Then his face broke into a mix of glee and contempt. He probably thought I had come to beg. Oh, isn't this Ethan? He stood up, walked over to me, looking down at me, had a change of heart, ready to kneel and beg Sophia to forgive you. I tilted the ice in my glass and smiled. Dylan, I've always wondered, where does a useless lump like you, who's only good for being born into the right family, get the nerve to bark at me? Dylan's face instantly flushed the color of raw liver. What the hell did you say? He roared, raising his hand to slap me. His hand hadn't come down before it was grabbed by an even stronger hand. The club's security manager had appeared by our side without anyone noticing. Expressionless, he clamped onto Dylan's wrist with such force that Dylan grimaced. Mr. Parker, no fighting is allowed inside the club. Dylan tried to break free, but found the man's grip was like an iron clamp. Let go of me. Do you know who I am? My dad is Richard Parker. The security manager kept a straight face, simply turned his head, and bowed respectfully to me. Mr. Johnson, you've been startled. How would you like us to handle this? This scene left everyone present dumbfounded. Dylan was even more stunned. He looked at the security manager's respectful attitude toward me, then glanced at me, his mind momentarily blank. You all. I ignored him and simply pulled a card from my pocket, tossing it onto his face. It was a black metal card, giving off a cold, faint glow under the lights. Open your damn eyes and look properly. I pointed at the card. This is the supreme membership card of this club. In the whole of Jing City, there are no more than 5. Your crappy membership card isn't even worthy of polishing its shoes. I pointed again to the outfit I was wearing, which looked ordinary, but was actually from a top Italian bespoke tailor. This suit I'm wearing is enough for you to buy a luxury sports car. Finally, I lifted my wine glass and slowly poured the golden liquid from above Dylan's head. The wine ran down his carefully styled hair, soaking his expensive suit and leaving him in a disheveled mess. I leaned close to his ear and, in a voice only the two of us could hear, whispered, "The Parker Group you're so proud of is, to me, nothing more than a grasshopper that can be crushed at any moment. The capital you use to pursue Sophia is less than my monthly pocket money. So tell me, what exactly are you?" Dylan was completely stunned. He stood there dazed, letting the whiskey drip down his cheek, his eyes full of shock, humiliation, and disbelief. The sycophants around him were all silent, looking at me as if they'd seen a ghost. They couldn't understand how someone they believed to be a went bankrupt and ran loser could suddenly transform into a big shot whom even the top clubs treated with reverence. This massive shock to his perception hurt him even more than a slap in the face would have. I was too lazy to look at his stupid expression any longer, turned to the head of security and said, "Please take him out. He's making me irritated." "Yes, Mr. Johnson." The head of security waved his hand, and two hulking guards immediately stepped forward and, like picking up a chick, carried the still-dazed Dylan out. "Let go of me. Do you know who I am?" "Ethan, just you wait." Dylan's shouts and curses grew farther and farther until they disappeared. The cigar bar fell into a deathly silence. I looked around. Those who had just been mocking me with Dylan were now all keeping their heads down, not daring to meet my eyes. I let out a soft laugh, set the wine glass on the bar, and turned to leave. That night, the news that Ethan had publicly humiliated Dylan at a private club spread through the circle like it had grown wings. Along with the news came all kinds of speculation. Ethan wasn't bankrupt. He struck it rich. Where did his money come from? Countless question marks hung over everyone's minds. And of course, the news also reached the ears of the woman still waiting anxiously downstairs at my building. It was sent to her by Lucas. He directly sent Sophia the video, secretly filmed by someone at the club, of me pouring alcohol on Dylan. And he attached one sentence. "He's doing very well, better than all of you. Don't bother him anymore." I don't know what expression Sophia had when she saw the video. All I know is that the next day, I received an unexpected phone call. The call was from Sophia's father, George Taylor, chairman of the Taylor Group. His voice carried the authority of someone long accustomed to power, but his tone was very polite. "Ethan, is it? I'm Sophia's father, George Taylor." "Mr. Taylor, is there something?" I said evenly. "It's like this, Ethan. On behalf of Sophia, I want to apologize to you for her previous rudeness. Also, I'd like to invite you to a meal. Would that be convenient for you?" "Hongmin banquet?" I sneered inwardly, but said aloud, "No need for a meal. If Mr. Taylor has something to say, he might as well say it straight." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line. "Good, straight to the point." George seemed not to expect my directness. "Ethan, I know you're a capable person. Taylor Group is in some trouble right now, and I hope you can step in and help Taylor Group get through this difficulty." "Oh, what kind of ability could I possibly have?" I feigned surprise. "I've heard about your moves in the capital market." George's voice deepened. "In 1 month, with less than 10 million US dollars in principal, you turn it into several billion US dollars. There isn't a second person in the business world who can do that. Ethan, you're not someone ordinary. It seems they've already dug up most of my background. Fine. Saves me the trouble of explaining further. So, Mr. Taylor means he wants to ask for my help? Not inviting," George emphasized, "hiring. I'm willing to transfer 10% of Taylor Group shares, as long as you can help Taylor Group repel the Parker family and resolve the current funding crisis. 10% of his shares. I have to admit, George Taylor is a man of boldness. Although Taylor Group is now in crisis, a dying camel is still bigger than a horse. 10% of shares are worth at least 2 billion US dollars. This gesture is nothing if not grand. In my previous life, I fought tooth and nail, and in the end, all I got was a casual thank you from Sophia. But now they're offering $2 billion to hire me. How ironic. Well, Ethan, isn't this offer sincere enough? George asked confidently. He believed that no one could resist such a temptation. I smiled. Mr. Taylor, you seem to have misunderstood one thing. What? Money is the one thing I lack least right now. I leaned against the sofa, looking out at the river view, and said lightly, $2 billion. Is that a lot? To me, it's nothing more than a string of digits. Why on earth should I wade into the Taylor family's dirty waters and waste my precious doing nothing time for that string of digits? There was that same deathly silence on the other end of the line. I could picture George Taylor's face, full of shock and bewilderment. He probably had never been rejected like that in his life. Ethan, don't be ungrateful. On the other end of the line, George Taylor's voice finally took on a trace of anger. He had long held a high position, and being so curtly refused clearly wounded his pride. I'm not ungrateful. I'm merely stating a fact. My voice remained calm. Mr. Taylor, matters of the Taylor family are your own. I have neither the obligation nor the interest to be involved. If Mr. Taylor has nothing else, I'll hang up. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him further. After all, my private chef has already prepared the European afternoon tea, and I don't want it to get cold. Having said that, without waiting for his response, I decisively hung up the phone again. I put down my phone and picked up the delicate European-style afternoon tea the butler had just brought me, feeling unusually lighthearted. Refusing someone powerful feels this good. Meanwhile, in the Taylor family's villa, the atmosphere was oppressively tense. George Taylor, his face ashen, slammed his phone down on the table. Outrageous. Preposterous. He was seething with fury. Sophia sat opposite him. She had heard every word of her father's phone conversation. When she heard me say, $2 billion, is that a lot? Her heart felt as if an invisible hand had squeezed it hard. Once upon a time, this man had begged every relative lowly to scrape together $1 million in seed money for her. And now, $2 billion, in his eyes, was already insignificant. This earth-shattering change made her feel a deep sense of powerlessness and unfamiliarity. The Ethan in front of her was no longer the humble pursuer from her memories who came when summoned and left at will. He had turned into an iceberg she couldn't see through at all, colder and harder than she was. Dad, he really said that? Sophia's voice was a little dry. You heard him yourself. George was still fuming. This Ethan, who knows what damned luck he hit, making a couple of lousy bucks, now thinks the sky's the limit. Who does he think he is? Without our Taylor family, he's nothing. Sophia fell silent. She knew her father was speaking in anger. Turning an asset into 1,000 times its value within a month was absolutely not something that could be explained away as dumb luck. It was a kind of power she couldn't comprehend and even felt afraid of. Then, what do we do now? She asked, bewildered. George Taylor paced back and forth in the living room. Finally, he stopped and looked at his daughter, his expression complicated. Sophia, the one who tied the knot must untie it, he said in a low voice. This matter started because of you. I'm afraid it will also need you to finish it. Sophia froze. She understood her father's meaning. Father put down his chairman's airs and was refused. Now, it was her turn to set aside the Ice Queen's pride. To beg Ethan. That realization made her nails dig deep into her palms. Beg the man she had never looked at properly, whom she even thought was a nuisance to exist. This hurts more than killing her. But seeing the new white hairs at my father's temples, seeing the company's precarious situation, she knew she had no choice. That night, I was watching an old movie in my private overseas custom cinema when the butler reported again that Sophia had arrived. This time, she didn't wait downstairs. She somehow persuaded the property management and came straight to my doorstep. I watched the surveillance footage and saw the woman standing at the door, her face pale, lips pressed tight, a cold smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. At last, she had come. I didn't open the door right away. Instead, I leaned back on the sofa and leisurely finished a glass of red wine. Then I finally passed through the access control and said one sentence to her. Ms. Taylor, do you have an appointment? Outside the door, Sophia's body visibly stiffened. She probably never imagined that one day, meeting me, Ethan, would also require an appointment. Ethan, I know you're in there. Her voice came through the cold metal door, with a tremor she herself hadn't noticed. Can we talk? Talk about what? I asked back. I don't think we have anything to talk about. About the company's matters. That's your company, not mine. I cut her off directly. Outside the door, there was a long silence. I waited patiently. I knew that for someone as proud as she, getting this far was already her limit. After a long while, her voice sounded again, this time with obvious pleading and a faint, hard-to-detect grievance. Ethan, please. I'm begging you. Beg me. Those two words coming from Sophia's mouth were more astonishing than the sun rising in the west. In my past life, I dreamed of hearing her soften toward me even once. But now that I heard it, my heart was calm, even a little amused. If I'd known it would come to this, why did I do it in the first place? I pressed the door open button. The door opened. She stood outside, looking at me with an expression of the utmost complexity. There was pleading, unwillingness, regret, and a trace of dependence even she didn't understand. I leaned against the doorframe and looked down at her. "Wanting to help?" She nodded vigorously. "Okay." I smiled, bearing a mouth of white teeth. "But my appearance fee is very expensive." A spark of hope instantly lit in Sophia's eyes. "What conditions?" "As long as I can do it, I'll agree to anything," she said urgently, as if clutching at a lifeline. "Don't rush." I held up a finger and waved it in front of her. "You might not be able to meet my conditions." I turned and walked into the living room, sat down on the huge sofa, and poured myself a glass of water. From beginning to end, I had no intention of inviting her in. She could only stand at the doorway, like an employee waiting for an interview, nervous and ill at ease. This role reversal made me feel elated. "First," I began, my voice echoing in the spacious living room, "I want Parker Group to go completely bankrupt right in front of you." Sophia froze. The Parker family is powerful. Even if we fend off their acquisition, making them go bankrupt is almost impossible. "That's your problem, not mine." I cut her off. "I only look at the results. If you can't do it, there's nothing more to discuss between us." Sophia's face grew even paler. This condition was no longer harsh. It was a fantasy. Second, I ignored her shock and continued. "I want you, Sophia, to personally hold a press conference and apologize to me publicly." "Apologize?" She looked at me incredulously. "What?" "Apologize for your ignorance, for your arrogance, for the hurt you've caused me over the past 10 years, I said, word by word. "I want you to tell the whole world that the man Sophia once looked down on is now someone you must look up to." Sophia's body began to tremble slightly. This demand was even more unacceptable to her than the first. Make this favored daughter of heaven, in front of the whole world, apologize to a simp she used to have? This is about trampling her dignity into the ground. "Ethan," her voice wavered into a sob, her eyes reddening. "Feeling wrong," I sneered. "When you poured out the rich soup I cooked for you, did you ever think about my feelings? When you hung up my call as I was dying, did you ever think about my despair?" "Sophia, compared to the pain you've caused me, is this little demand worth anything?" My words were like sharp knives, piercing her heart. She was powerless to refute, because what I say is all the truth. I watched her tottering appearance, feeling not an iota of pity. I stood up, walked to her, and stated my third and final condition. The last and most important condition. I leaned down, moved close to her ear, and in a voice only she could hear, I whispered, "I want you to kneel." Boom! Something in Sophia's mind seemed to explode. She suddenly stepped back, looking at me with the kind of gaze reserved for madmen. What did you say?" I said, "Kneel. Beg me." I looked into her eyes and repeated, "Just like I've spent the past 10 years groveling to you. Now it's your turn." Humiliation. An unprecedented humiliation, like a tide, overwhelmed Sophia. Her body trembled like a leaf in the autumn wind. Tears finally escaped and slid down her cheeks. She had never been so humiliated in her life. "Ethan, you bastard." She finally broke down and cried out. "Yes, I am a bastard." I looked at her with no expression. "This bastard was made by your own hands. Now choose. Do you choose your dignity or your father's life's work?" I leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, watching her with calm detachment. I knew how cruel this choice was for her, but I was determined to be that cruel. I wanted her to personally experience even 1/10,000th of the pain and despair I endured in my past life. Time passed, minute by minute, second by second. Only her muffled sobs remained in the living room. Inside her, a battle between heaven and self raged. Reason told her to turn and leave at once, to get as far away from this madman as possible. But emotion and duty, like two chains, bound her feet tight. A long time, A long time. She slowly stopped crying. She lifted her head, those eyes swollen and red from crying, fixed on me. In her gaze was endless struggle and despair. Then under my stare, those proud knees that had never bent to anyone slowly, inch by inch, bent. In that moment, time seemed to stand still. Looking at the woman who once looked down on me from above, who wouldn't even spare me a glance, and who now, in order to beg me, was prepared to cast aside all her pride, I felt none of the anticipated satisfaction. Only a hollow, endless sorrow. Sorrow for the me in the past life, who was humiliated down to the dust. Just as her knees were about to touch the cold floor, I spoke. Enough. My voice was very soft, but Sophia froze there as if she had been petrified. She looked up at me with tear-filled eyes, her gaze full of confusion. Get up. I sighed and reached out my hand to her. The floor is cold. Sophia stared blankly at my outstretched hand and didn't move. I grew impatient, stepped forward, grabbed her arm, and hauled her up. Her body was light. Unstable on her feet, she stumbled straight into my arms. The familiar, faint fragrance I once adored drifted to me. But in that moment, my heart was utterly unmoved. I steadied her, then let go, took a step back, putting some distance between us. You. She looked at me, her lips moving, but she didn't know what to say. The conditions just now were all just to tease you, I said lightly. She suddenly lifted her head and looked at me in disbelief. Tease me? What else? I sneered. You really think I'd make you kneel? Sophia, I'm not that bored. I just want you to know what it feels like to have your dignity trampled. She fell silent, her face flushing red and paling in turns. As for the crisis at Taylor Group, I said, walking to the wine cabinet and pouring myself a glass, I won't help you. The faint hope she had just kindled was instantly extinguished by my words. Why? She asked, puzzled. Just now you. I was only trying to see you make a fool of yourself, I said cruelly. Sophia, remember this. I, Ethan, am not your savior, and I am not a tool you can summon and discard at will. From the moment I was reborn, everything between us was settled. I won't help you, not because I hate you, and not because I want revenge. I turned around, looked at her, and said each word deliberately. But it's because you and everything about your Taylor family are just too much trouble for me. I just want to live my peaceful life. Understand? Too troublesome. Those 3 words, like 3 sharp slaps, struck Sophia's face hard. Once upon a time, this was also what she said to me most often. Ethan, don't come looking for me anymore. You're such a trouble. Now, I returned that sentence to her verbatim. Karma comes full circle. Retribution is inevitable. She stood there, dazed and listless, as if all her strength had been drained away. Go. I gave her the order to leave. Don't come looking for me again. Whether your Taylor family lives or dies is none of my concern. After speaking, I didn't look at her again and headed straight for my study. From behind came her despairing, sobbing cry. Ethan. I didn't look back. The door closed behind me, cutting her off from everything. I knew that from this moment on, between her and me, a true, final full stop had been drawn. Later, I heard that the Taylor Group ultimately couldn't hold on and was split up by the Parker Group and several investors. George Taylor turned white-haired overnight and suffered a serious illness. Sophia, however, completely disappeared from the business world. Later, Lucas told me that he had run into Sophia in the small villa town abroad. She had cut her hair short, wore plain clothes, and was working in a flower shop. When she saw Lucas, she only gave a faint smile and said she was living well now, very peacefully. Lucas asked me whether I had any regrets. I was fishing on my private island overseas at the time, the sea breeze making one drowsily content. I looked at the deep blue sea and smiled. What is there to regret? Yes, really, what is there to regret? She found her peace, and I began living the life I had always dreamed of. We were like 2 straight lines that intersected and then gradually drifted apart, each heading toward a different horizon. This was fine. The phone buzzed, a new message. It was sent by a girl I met on my trip, a girl who has 2 little dimples when she smiles. Her name is Chloe Bennett. Uncle, The sunset is so beautiful tonight. Want to watch it together? I looked at the brilliant evening glow in the photo and felt the corners of my mouth involuntarily lift. I replied, "Okay." I put down my phone, packed up my fishing rod, and prepared to welcome a beautiful dusk. As for that woman named Sophia, she might become a symbol I occasionally recall in my life, but nothing more. After all, once a simp has found solid ground, he won't turn back to look at the sea that almost drowned him. Years later, just as I was about to forget the name Sophia, Lucas suddenly sent me a package. There was only a small, somewhat old wooden box in the package. I opened the box. Inside was a stack of stationery. The handwriting on the paper was delicate yet forceful, Sophia's handwriting. It was her diary, or rather, letters she wrote to me but never sent. I, as if driven by fate, began to read. The first letter was the day I hung up on her for the first time after my rebirth. June 12th, 2024. Today, Ethan hung up on me for the first time. He didn't even bring me breakfast. His assistant said he poured away that pot of carefully prepared thick soup. I don't know why, my heart is in turmoil. It's like something that had always belonged to me suddenly disappeared. The second letter was written the day we ran into each other at the cafe. He didn't look at me once from beginning to end. His gaze was strange, very cold. Dylan's provocation, to him, seemed like a joke. In that moment, I suddenly felt that the embarrassed ones weren't him, but Dylan and me. He seemed different. The third letter was the one on my doorstep, the day I shut him out. I was standing at his door, the wind bitter. For the first time, I understood how agonizing it is to wait for someone. I began to wonder if, over the past 10 years, he had often done the same. Waiting downstairs for me? Why did I never think to go down and see him? I read them one by one. The letters recorded all of her emotional journey after I left. From the initial shock and confusion, to later agitation and inquiry, and finally to remorse and pain. She began to recall the past 10 years, the little things I did for her. Those efforts she once took for granted, even found tiresome, only revealed their value after they were gone. The final letter was written after Taylor Group went bankrupt. Ethan, I lost. I lost utterly. I lost my father's company, and I lost you. Only today do I understand that what I lost wasn't a suitor, but the only person in this world who loved me without reservation. If time could turn back, I would never have hung up on you. I would have told you I really wanted that bowl of rich soup. But there is no if anymore. Goodbye, my boy. At the end of the letter, there was a dried tear stain. I closed the letter and remained silent for a long time. Outside the window, the sun was just right. My new girlfriend, Chloe Bennett, was in the garden, smiling as she played with a lazy cat. I looked at her bright, radiant smile and felt a deep sense of peace. I picked up the little wooden box, walked to the fireplace, and threw it in. Flames rose, turning those belated affections and that past I couldn't bear to recall into ashes. Sophia, perhaps she truly regretted it. But so what? Some things once missed are missed for a lifetime. I turned and walked toward my sunlight, my new life. Behind me was the crackling sound of the past burning.